So next month is actually the 20th anniversary of the founding of VinaCapital. So November of 2003 is when Don co-founded the firm. And what's really interesting about the organization today, whether this is Vietnam or not, but it happens to be Vietnam, is we've got a senior leadership team. Andy, our Chief Investment Officer, Brooke, our Chief Operating Officer, and Don, the CEO, that's been together since 2007. And so when people look at the organization, they say, how have you done? What are you doing? It's very interesting that over the last 2 years, particularly during COVID, our headcount's probably grown 20 or 25%. And you get to do that as a private company. And so when people look at us and they look at our energy platform or private equity or venture or the investments we're making in headcount on the listed side, the fact that we've got a senior leadership team and the fact that we're a private company, we can take this and look out 5 years on where do we want to go, where do we want to be. We don't have affiliations with other organizations, and so we're able to really focus on what's best for our shareholders and our partners as we build this business and think long term. Now, having said that, over the last 20 years, we've learned a lot. And so this is a great opportunity for us to kind of share what we've learned, for you to ask us questions on what we've learned and what we would do again or what we wouldn't do again. So starting with you, Don, we started the firm, or you started the firm, I say we, you started the firm 20 years ago. How has the investment platform evolved over the last 20 years? It's certainly evolved, and do you think it will continue to evolve like it has?
Thank you, Eric. Before I answer that really long question, I just want to do a plug for Andy. Crossing the Street is actually a book wrote by Andy. And it's on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
And the proceeds go to the foundation.
Oh, okay. So the title of the session is actually a book that's written by Andy. Well, and also this session, you can ask any question, right?
Yeah.
To us, okay. But the first one, what Eric is just how do we evolve the platform and then so on and so forth. I think we started out with $9.5 million with a fund, VOF, Vietnam Opportunity Fund. And that fund is really our flagship fund. It's our core business. Until today, it's where we spend, I would say, our most focus on, because this is a flagship fund. And as things evolve, when we started this out about 20 years ago, we did not really think about how a local market will evolve. We've always been thinking about international money and so on and so forth. But what's interesting is that as Vietnam economic growth, you can see over the last 20 years, there are more middle class. There are more family office in Vietnam. So we did start, besides the various private equity, fixed income, and so on and so forth, I think the next evolution will be the local fund, where local investor would then give us a professionally managed money like us to manage. So that's the evolution. That's the way we see it. Besides the various other platforms that we have launched, mainly at the request of investor, like the energy platform, the hospitality platform, those are mainly evolve out of the demand from investor or the opportunity that come up.
Thank you, Don. So Andy, I'll go to you. So whenever we meet with clients, and it's so great that everyone's here, we've been doing Zoom calls for the last 2 years, and the question's always about, why is having boots on the ground so important? And now if people come here and they walk around Vietnam, they have a better sense for it, but how is that a competitive edge for us, and particularly the tenure that we have as well?
Yeah, I think over the last few years, you're right, we've been talking to our investors via Zoom, and I think they're pretty convinced that I was sitting in Vietnam through that Zoom. I think it is important to be on the ground. We have a lot of information. Our number one asset is information. And eventually everyone has information, but that information may be stale. What we have is fresh information, new information that we can sort of act upon and understand. And being on the ground, being able to understand the culture, and obviously myself and Don and yourself learn Vietnamese and understand Vietnamese very well. It helps. Brooke, so it helps to speak the local language. And just to give you an example, every morning I can choose to have breakfast at the Continental Hotel and understand everything I need to know about real estate, because all the CEOs are there eating breakfast. And then I go, okay, next Monday I want to have breakfast at the Rex because all the brokers and the bankers are sitting there for breakfast. Right? And if I want to have I want more information in other areas, I know where to go. And the noise that I hear, I want to go and talk to these CEOs to confirm whether the noise is correct or not. And it helps me think about what happens next. And also very important is I find out a lot about the competing business through some of these individuals as well. So I think it's extremely important to be on the ground and understand businesses and make the right quality decisions when it comes to deploying money.
And so, Brooke, you've actually been in Vietnam, what now, 26 years? 26 years and been with the firm since 2007. When you think about VinaCapital, when you talk about us, when people say, hey, what makes VinaCapital different and certainly unique within the universe of our peers?
Yeah, I think that the discussions today sort of highlight the point I would make, and that is that we are a diversified investment manager. We invest across all asset classes in Vietnam: fixed income, public and private equities, infrastructure and energy combined, real estate and venture capital. And that makes us very, very unique in this country. Our specialization is Vietnam, right? We aim to know everything about what's going on in this country as a specialist in this area. So there's three real benefits from this degree of diversification that I'd point out. One is in terms of our clients, or when people come to see us, we can help them build better investment solutions or products. We can offer them a wide range of different products to meet their needs. Often people come with very clear intentions in mind, and we have very informed discussions in that way. But sometimes people just want exposure to Vietnam, but don't really know how to play it. So we have very informed discussions. The second point is around deal flow, right? We see every deal in this country, right? Now, people know, the sponsors or the sellers know they can come to us and raise capital or sell whatever they're selling. They may not know where it will sit within the VinaCapital group, but there's a universal word out there: go and talk to VinaCapital if you want to raise capital or you want to sell an asset. In fact, we have this informal KPI, I think, that is, we must see every deal in this country. And if a deal gets announced and, Don doesn't know about it, then the manager gets an email saying, did we know about it, sort of stuff.
I get it all the time.
I think that a few of you do, yeah. But no, but we do know about it, we just don't tell Don. And the third point I think is really important is we can make better investment decisions, right? We understand the stock market is the stock market, right? Here it's very nascent. It's not a true reflection of the sectors that you can invest in this country or the sectors themselves. Only a small proportion of companies, for example, in real estate, are actually on the stock market, right? There's a lot of private companies as well. So to really get a proper understanding, you need to pull information from different, what would otherwise be different asset classes, public and private. Even the fixed income market, right? We had a discussion the other day on our fixed income fund, and of course banks are putting up their deposit rates. What impact does that have, particularly in the corporate bond market, right? And then how do we feed that into our real estate, the public companies that we invest in real estate, or the private ones we invest in real estate, and the impact of that? So it gives us this huge awareness of what's going on here and ability to make much, much better investment decisions.
So for my next question, I'm going to ask each of you the same question, which is, people often highlight their successes, but oftentimes our greatest lessons come from things that really don't work out. And so can you share an example, Don, of a lesson learned of a transaction or decision, and why VinaCapital and our clients are in a better place today because of that?
Well, maybe I'll just cover on the VinaCapital involvement, and maybe Andy and Brooke can cover some of the deal cases that they've been through. In the early days of VinaCapital, we grew really, really fast. And we just focused on raising money and just grow the business. And at some point in time, you fail in some cases, and there's a lot of risk involved. And this is where the lesson learned was that at that time, we have Andy and Brooke join us. at VinaCapital 2007, and then institutionalized VinaCapital at the time. And the lesson really learned is that you really need a good foundation with risk management, with compliance, with the right process before you can actually grow really fast. So in any business, even in Vietnam, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start a business, they just focus on the revenue and the top line and not focusing on the back office or the underlying institution that they need to create. So that's the key lesson learned in a fast-moving market like Vietnam.
Okay. Andy, how about for you?
Yeah, I think the lessons learned, the original intention of the book I wrote was 23 Rules of Investment, and it derives from the fact that we made 23 big mistakes. So when we gave the draft to the London publisher, they turned around and said, well, you look like a really bad set of investors sitting in Vietnam. So can you turn it around, write the book in a different way? And so that's what really it was. It's a thought process where we sort of institutionalize or memorize the things that we've learned in the past, such as what I discussed with you the other day. You know, when we look at a business, particularly a family-run business, the family dynamic is extremely important. Understanding the relationship between a husband and wife is extremely important. If they don't get along, they'll get divorced. And we had a case where we invited the chairman to one of our resorts. And one of the laws in Vietnam many, many years ago was that if you stayed in a resort or any hotel in Vietnam, if you're not married to your spouse, you can't stay in the same rooms. So you have to book a separate room. So lo and behold, I had to book a separate room for this gentleman, and it dawned on me real quick that, well, he's bringing his girlfriend, not his wife. So, okay, it's not a deal breaker. It just makes me think, well, hang on, if he doesn't have a loyalty to his wife, what sort of loyalty will he have to his shareholders or his partner? Again, it's not a deal breaker. And then we went back and asked the team, can you sort of find out what's the relationship like between the husband and wife? Well, then we found out they slept in different rooms in the same house, though. And we felt that the relationship was a bit rocky, and we felt that if they divorced, the assets would be broken in half, and the shares will no longer be a controlling block, and one person or the other can veto everything. And it was difficult. We didn't make the investment, needless to say, for other reasons as well. About 2 years later, the wife took off to Australia with the CHOP. Now in Vietnam, if you don't have a CHOP, you can't legalize any of the documents. And it comes to show that, you know, the partnership is important, not only with us, but in the family. And if the family breaks up, what happens to the share of the business, and how does it get voted, and who gets to vote what? And typically in Vietnam, the women manage money. The men are the ones with the strategy and the execution, and the women manage money. If they separate yourself, you really have a car without wheels, right? A big component of the vehicle is not together. And that's a big lesson for us to learn. And I've obviously learned a lot other lessons as well, I think. But we've learned a lot over the years. And I think shareholders today benefit from what we've learned over the years. We sort of saw those potholes, and now if you become a shareholder, you benefit from that. And we hope we don't make the same mistakes again.
Brooke, same question to you.
Yeah, so I'm not on the investment side, but a comment really around our strategy that will help you understand a little bit more about VinaCapital. So back in the heyday, back 2007, 2008, 2009, the funds that we had actually set up had mandates to invest outside Vietnam and the neighbouring countries. So we set up an office in Cambodia, thinking that we might sort of diversify some of the portfolios. We just couldn't find anything to buy, and we didn't understand the country. So within 2 years, we closed it down. We came back to Vietnam. And then Myanmar was opening up, and we thought, that looks really interesting. We can see real parallels with Vietnam. We know this country. Went across to Myanmar, started to look at stuff. Couldn't find any deals. And the ones that we could find were simply not investable. So 2.5 years later, we shut that one down as well. So what the story sort of, the point of the story is that it really helped us understand that, one, Vietnam is a great place to invest. There's lots of really attractive deals, lots of people that want capital to grow their businesses or for us to invest in other ways. So compared to other countries in this area, it's a great investment destination that we should really focus on. The second one was that how different the countries in Southeast Asia are. Okay, those ones, Cambodia and Myanmar, certainly are very emerging, frontier, in fact. But it does highlight the fact that every country in Southeast Asia is very different. And for that reason, it's the same point Andy was making. It is so important to be on the ground and focused if you're going to invest in this country, so that you have all of the information and all the knowledge and expertise that you need. So we really became focused on building Vietnam's best investment manager. We abandoned ideas of expanding, being an Indochina manager or a pan-Southeast Asian manager and so on, and just wanted to focus on Vietnam. And I think that's really, we realized it a while ago, and it's paid off to today.
All right. Now that actually concludes our formal Q&A, but I thought it would be a great opportunity for all of you. Many of you have certainly flown a great distance to be here, so if you have questions for Don, for Brooke, or Andy, this is a great chance. Except for him. I'm kidding.
Finish my quota, have I? Okay, Eric says I've only been allowed one question. I've been asking too many questions the whole day. But this question is directed at Don, and this is a very important question about the future of asset management in Vietnam. The reason why I'm asking this is because if you look at the development of asset management markets in Asia, you really need a thriving pensions industry. Without a thriving pensions industry, it is hard for the domestic asset management market to develop. In Hong Kong, before Hong Kong introduced the MPF, which is the Mandatory Provident Fund system, the penetration rate of mutual funds was less than 5%, more than 20 years ago. Today, the penetration rate of mutual funds in Hong Kong is approaching 20%. So I think I'm not thinking, I'm just saying that the development of pensions in Vietnam is going to be the future, whether it is in corporate pensions, which is happening now, or if you look at China, the private pensions market has just opened up. It's going to be a $1 trillion market in China. So I just want to ask Don, apart from how do you see the overall asset management industry in Vietnam in the next 5, 10, 20 years, and how do you see the development of pensions in this country? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. Well, firstly, if you look at the last 3 to 4 years, the number of private accounts opened at the brokerage in Vietnam grew very significantly. So there's a lot of individual owner or people who actually invest directly into the market. And what you see is the mentality is that I always tell a story where when you have so many retail investors coming into the market, and most of them do not really understand the fundamental of investing, they're just trading mainly, or just go with the trend. If a friend said, well, this stock is doing well, they'll just pump the money in and just invest. And over the year, especially since late last year, when the market started to correct, what we do see is a lot of these people now are looking at ways to go into professional manager like us. So the first trend is that people will be interested in the market. They open their own account, they do the trading, it's more like a gambling. And then when the market corrects, they realize that, well, they're going to lose a lot of money, and now they're moving to professional manager. And that's a trend that's happening right now. And that's why our local fund manager and our local fund have grown significantly as they move. The next step is really the pension fund. Right now, as you said, corporate pension, private pension is there, but the rule's not conducive. I think I'll leave this part to Brooke to add some more comment onto it, because he's been working on this, and we've been working with the government and trying to encourage them, say, look, hey, you need to do this pension fund because this is where the money is going to be for long-term infrastructure investment, right? You need the pension fund. You need to get this kind of long-term money. Otherwise, you can't build infrastructure without long-term money. So Brooke, maybe you want to mention some of the regulatory issue.
I won't go into the details. All I can say in regard to the regulations is they don't work. They make it unattractive for employers, unattractive for employees, and unattractive for asset managers. So, and unfortunately, I'll be frank, we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because there isn't a lot of pressure on the system at the moment to create a better pension scheme. The pressure will come. The social insurance program, which all employees have. So there is a pension scheme that the government has. And all workers in Vietnam pay a contribution to that scheme. And then if they retire at a certain age, they can get a pension or a lump sum amount. But it's unfunded, and it's going to be bankrupt in about 5 years because the amount of payouts is going to be more than the amount of receipts coming in. The government knows this. They've known it for 10 years already. And the pension regulations that came out were trying to respond to that. But what often happens in Vietnam is you find that the first drafting of the regulations, even if they're codified into law, don't work. But we've seen time and time again that the authorities identify the problems and will keep tweaking and working at it until they get to a workable solution. So realistically, I don't think you'll have great pension regulations in place and compulsory pensions savings for at least 5 years. But the market will grow. And I think the reason mutual funds and linking that ETFs will grow is that we're seeing ourselves in the distribution of our products, particularly through banks, that there's real demand out there. People are wanting to diversify their investment holdings. They can't invest outside Vietnam. A lot of the people that will invest in our products have already got real estate and bank deposits and gold and may have even invested directly in the stock market as well. So this is another way of, or another asset class basically for personal portfolios. We met with so at the moment, the domestic market, that is the amount of money in the domestic mutual fund market, ETFs and mutual funds together is $2 billion, right? The total amount, including foreign investors, is about $4 billion. We met with the SSC a few weeks ago. They were at our office, and they said they want it to be 10% of GDP by 2030, right? So there's even a KPI in there that they're aiming for. So $35 billion by 2030. And I think that's quite realistic, actually, even without a proper pension product service. Severe?
He gave a presentation. He gets to ask a question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Really enjoying the day. Thank you, guys. Andy, first of all, I apologize for not having read your book yet, but based on the one anecdote you gave of the 2 rooms, I'm looking forward to the other 22 stories in your book. Question for you is, I've been here since the weekend, this trip. I haven't been here, obviously, for a few years. And I met with a number of CEOs, both of local companies and MNCs. And what I'm taking away is that the intrinsic nature of Vietnamese people is far more entrepreneurial than perhaps I had first observed, though I've worked in the country for a long time. And so, question is, for any of you, how are you retaining your, top emerging talent, given that a number of people I spoke to say everything I and others spoke about today is how the market is opening up and all these great opportunities, and people are leaving to start their own businesses. How are you managing to keep them in the VinaCapital ecosystem and everything you're doing, if my fundamental assumption that the people are fundamentally entrepreneurial people, how are you managing to do that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yes, you're right. It's more pervasive than just within the VinaCapital system. It's an ecosystem, and it touches upon the investee companies that we invest in. How are they able to keep the talent? And more important, they have trained a lot of people along the way as well in trying to keep them. And it's not easy. I have to admit, multinationals come, they recruit. They recruit from other multinationals, and they recruit from the local businesses. So there's been a lot of movements for top talent. I have to be honest, these businesses have to come up with long-term incentive plans, proper ESOP plans, stock options, and also short-term incentive plan as well, a package to keep these executives. And I think you're right, the entrepreneurship spirit of Vietnamese people also means that you have to create opportunities for them to grow in the business, to own something in the business that can grow. And the key to that component is the business, particularly those that we invest in, the bigger ones, do they have the patience to make and allow for the small components to grow? Because most businesses don't. And as a result, the talents will never migrate to it because they know that, hey, if I do this new product, new division, I won't get the budget, I won't get the resources, so I won't go there. And I'll continue to sit on the bigger budget. So those are the challenges too. They want to go, they want to own something, but the bigger businesses don't have the patience to nurture the smaller business because, frankly, it doesn't make a dent into the financial statements, right? So that's the challenge that some of these bigger businesses face. For us, I think my personal side is, personally, I think the folks that work with us, and I've been very fortunate to have them work with me for like 10, 15, 20 years, it's the challenge that they get to face every day. I tell them at the beginning that the investment world is, you make money, don't get me wrong, but you have to be motivated to learn. It's about learning. It's about learning new things every day. If you're not motivated to learn and read and pick up a book and understand this new business model, you're just going to be lost behind. Right? So I think the people we bring on are those that are motivated to learn more about technology, about business models, about people, and willing to make those changes to be better. And I hope that they'll continue. And obviously, I see a lot of people, they don't stay, and they want to run businesses. Don have had a few folks that have left VinaCapital and run major businesses now and today, and we're very happy for that. And we want that to happen. And we want them to develop the foundation and the basis and experience to peel off and run these businesses. And so at the end of the day, it is challenging. I personally think that people should learn and want to learn in this environment, but if they want to grow and open up a new business, we encourage that.
Yeah, some of the examples, as you know, one of our early staff went off and set up VinaGame, which is the first unicorn in Vietnam. And we do have a bunch of alumni. Every year we have a staff conference. We would invite our alumni to come back and present or mingle. And it shows that we're quite open. I mean, if they want to go, we support them. And then it's become a great network for us. But statistically, I think we've been very lucky. We don't have that many turnover. That's why I'm going to hand over to Brooke soon because he keeps all those statistics. But essentially, most of the most senior people, even in the most competitive industry like investment, because all the investment partner or director, they like to go set their own funds. But I think within, for example, our flagship fund, VOF, most of the senior people have been around, I don't know how many years, I mean at least 10 or more. 15 years. I mean, most of them are around. So those that within our group have been around for a long, long time. And I think that it's a combination of compensation, of course. Had you given fair compensation? That's why a piece of the interest is always going to the staff and the team. But also the working environment. We are very open, very casual. We're not that, everyone is just sort of trying to get them to enjoy the work. But that's the normal stuff. But the key is that the proof is they are around for 10, 15 years with us. You have any?
No, not really. You wanted the statistics on our turnover rates, but it's somewhere between 10 and 15% per year. It's actually probably a little bit lower than I'd want, frankly. You've got to have, because one of the things that really is important is to keep people coming into the business, right? We're constantly bringing in people with new skills and expertise that we benefit from hugely. We recruit, most of our younger staff have been educated overseas. They've got already worked maybe for an asset management group overseas or a bank, or they bring in skills. I don't think there's anyone we recruit into the company that doesn't bring in clear skills that we think will be of value to us. But as Don was referring to, the real point is culture. Okay, it's the culture of our firm that keeps people in. It's dynamic, it's exciting. You're really at the leading edge of a lot of what's going on in Vietnam, particularly in the investment space. We empower our staff. You know, a lot of Vietnamese companies are highly autocratic, top-down. The CEO or chairman or makes all of the decisions, and people don't have the opportunity to be able to make their own decisions and experiment a lot. You know, we tolerate failure. If you make a mistake, yeah, get up, learn from it, and move on. These are the sorts of things culturally in businesses that are not universal in Vietnam, and people know that. Our staff know that.
How do you get more people to invest in Vietnam? How do you track them over?
So it's your job, Derek. Your job. Yeah. So from my perspective, you know, I've spent a lot of time traveling around the world and being sort of an ambassador to Vietnam, explaining the Vietnam story. And frankly, they have to take a long-term view in a place like Vietnam, and convincing people to take a long-term view in a country that's far, far away is not easy. But we do our best to market, and we have to deliver on the performance at the end of the day.
I'm technically moderator, but for this one I'll be a panelist. Nearly every person here flew to come here. And many of you are existing clients, and maybe some of you have investments in Vietnam outside of VinaCapital. So I'll ask each of you a question. Because I think at the end of this kind of trip that you have here, like I said last night, for some of you, you're going to have the same passion about Vietnam that we do. And so I would ask you to be our ambassadors, not just VinaCapital, but Vietnam. Because I think once people understand what's going on here, it actually becomes a really easy decision. You know, when you're sitting far away in an office, not being in Vietnam, it's like, well, there's an off-benchmark frontier market. Why would I do that? And then you come here and you see the energy, you meet the corporate executives, you see what's going on. All of a sudden it's like, okay, really fast, stable growth, low inflation, PEs that are at basically 2 standard deviations lower than they should be. I actually think it's a really easy decision. And so it's incumbent on us, when I say that us meaning the team, to go out and continue to tell that story. Obviously it's been a challenge not being able to travel for the last 2.5 years. But I think now that the world is kind of opening up, most people right now aren't saying, oh my God, I want to add risk to the portfolio. But that generally is the greatest time to invest. And so as we look at Vietnam, the fundamentals are probably as good here as they were as good anywhere in the world. That doesn't mean the market's going to recover tomorrow morning just because of everything we already know that's going on. But, how do we get more people to invest in Vietnam? Hopefully it's by people like you having the courage to come here and visit and giving us actual consideration, and then going back and telling your friends and peers and competitors about what you learned and what you liked about it. Because, we need advocacy. And to me, Vietnam is not an off-benchmark bet. It's absolutely one of the best places to invest for the next 10 years. Okay. With that, we're good? Okay. Well, with that, I will just do a few more logistics. So for those of you that requested the one-on-one meetings, we will have those in the room right next to us. There are tables assigned. Okay. And then dinner is at 7 p.m. at the Gem Center. Oh, look at this, is fantastic. There will be a shuttle bus here at 6:20 p.m. By the way, it's like a 5-minute drive, but okay, we'll be there early for drinks, I guess. So shuttle bus here, 6:20 p.m. If you're doing the FPT site visit, tomorrow, 8:30, shuttle bus here at the Hyatt. And then if you are here for the meetings, they start tomorrow at upstairs at what time? 9:15. Okay, so one-on-one meetings next door, shuttle bus to dinner at 6:20, and either 8:30 shuttle bus or 9:15 upstairs. Thank you so much for your attention and your questions all day. We'll see you at dinner.